The tavern was alive with sound, full of laughter, clinking glasses, and the rough voices of aliens from many species. Smoke hung in the air, and strange lights flickered above the tables. At the very corner, an old alien sat alone, his back bent, his eyes tired, his body shaking from hunger. His skin was dull, showing he was weak and near the end of his strength. In front of him was only a small bowl of soup, half finished, because he had already eaten more than he could pay for. His trembling hands clutched the edge of the table as two large guards walked toward him. They were strong, tall, with hard armor plates on their arms. They carried stun batons that hummed in the smoky light. The tavern quieted for a moment, the laughter changing into murmurs. Everyone knew what was about to happen. The guards reached the old alien, grabbed him by his thin arms, and dragged him up. The bowl spilled, soup running across the dirty floor. The old alien cried out in pain, begging them to wait, his voice weak and broken. "You cannot stay if you cannot pay," one guard said in a cold voice. The other shoved him toward the door, his heavy boots kicking the old alien's weak legs. He stumbled, almost falling, while the crowd watched with cruel smiles. Some laughed, some cheered, none offered help. To them, the old one was nothing but trash, a waste of space, too poor to deserve food. The old alien raised his hands, shaking, and tried to explain. His words were cut short by a slap across his face. He fell to his knees, clutching his cheek, while the guards stood above him like executioners. They prepared to throw him into the street, where cold winds howled outside and hungry scavengers waited for any weak prey. His eyes watered, not just from pain, but from shame. He whispered softly that he had once been someone important, that he only wanted to eat in peace. But his words were drowned in the sound of laughter. At that moment, a chair scraped against the floor. The sound was sharp, louder than the tavern noise, and every eye turned. A human stood up slowly from his corner table. His clothes were plain, travel-worn, a hood resting on his shoulders. His face was calm, his eyes steady. He was not tall compared to the guards, and he carried no visible weapon. But the way he stepped forward, the way his boots tapped on the floor, made the room fall into silence. He walked straight toward the guards, past staring eyes, until he stood between them and the old alien. "I will pay his bill," the human said. His voice was clear, strong, not loud, but it cut through the air like a blade. The guards stared, confused for a moment, then laughed. "You? A human?" one sneered. "You think your kind has the right to speak here?" The other pushed him back with a heavy hand, but the human did not move, his feet firm on the ground. Gasps came from the crowd. No human dared to challenge guards in this place. Humans were outsiders, seen as weak, small, and unworthy. For one to speak up, to defend an old alien no one cared about, was madness. "I said I will pay," the human repeated, louder this time. He reached into his pocket and dropped a handful of credits onto the table. The sound of metal coins striking wood echoed across the tavern. The guards blinked, uncertain, then leaned closer. "That is not enough. You must also pay for his insult, for his shame," one growled, his breath hot and sour. "Double the price, or you both leave in pieces." The crowd laughed again, eager to see blood spill. But the human reached into his pocket once more and threw down even more credits. The coins clattered across the floor, rolling beneath tables. Silence spread like fire. Everyone stared. He had paid not just the bill, not just the double fine, but more than enough to feed the whole tavern for the night. The guards froze, their greedy eyes flickering. Slowly, they released the old alien, who slumped to the floor, gasping for breath. The human bent down, lifted him gently, and sat him back on the chair. He poured the last of the spilled soup into the bowl and slid it toward him. "Eat," he said simply. The old alien looked at him with wide eyes, tears running down his wrinkled face. He whispered, "You don't know what you've done." His voice cracked with emotion, half grateful, half afraid. The human only gave a small smile, calm as stone, and sat beside him. Whispers moved across the tavern like wind. Why would a human risk everything for an old alien nobody wanted? What kind of man was he? Some looked at him with disgust, others with suspicion, but a few watched with curiosity. In the far shadows of the tavern, a figure cloaked in black leaned forward, studying the human closely, as if he had been waiting for this moment. The guards stepped back reluctantly, unwilling to cause more trouble now that they had been paid. But their eyes promised revenge. They left with heavy steps, pushing through the crowd, their faces hard with anger. The old alien's hands shook as he lifted the spoon to his lips. The human rested a hand on the table, his gaze still steady, watching the room as though he expected another attack. The tavern filled again with low voices, but the air had changed. Suspense clung to the walls, as if everyone was waiting to see what would happen next. A human had broken an unspoken rule, had stood against guards, had lifted up one who was meant to be cast aside. Nothing about this was ordinary. Something had begun, and none of them could stop it. The guards did not walk away far. They turned back slowly, their faces twisted in anger, their pride stung by the human's defiance. One of them slammed his baton against the wooden floor, sending sparks flying, and growled, "You think this ends here? No, human. You insult us when you protect trash. You owe more than money. You owe respect." The tavern crowd leaned in closer, whispering eagerly. Everyone wanted to see how far this human would go, how long before the guards beat him bloody. The human did not flinch. He sat calmly, his hand resting on the table, his eyes on the guards as if he measured every move they might make. The old alien at his side tried to pull his sleeve and whispered with a trembling voice, "Please, don't anger them more. You will only suffer. No one survives when they are marked." But the human's expression stayed steady. One of the guards shoved him hard on the shoulder, but he did not fall. The human rose slowly to his feet, and the entire tavern seemed to hold its breath. His voice was calm, yet firm, when he said, "I have paid. More than enough. He will eat in peace." The words echoed in the smoky room. Some aliens chuckled at his bravery, others shook their heads, thinking he was insane. The guards looked at each other, then sneered. "If you want him to eat in peace," one said, "then you pay the price of peace. Triple the amount, or perhaps your bones instead." Laughter erupted around them, cruel and sharp. The tavern lived for such moments: public humiliation, violence, broken pride. Without a word, the human reached into his pouch once again. The sound of more coins dropping to the floor silenced the room. They rolled under tables, glinting in the dim light. It was too much. It was wealth no common traveler should carry. The guards' eyes widened in disbelief. For a second, even they seemed uncertain. But the human was not finished. He sat down again beside the old alien, steady as stone, and filled the alien's cup with water from the jug on the table. He placed it gently in his hand. "Drink," he said. His voice carried no fear, only certainty, as if he had not just stood against the most dangerous men in the tavern. The old alien's fingers trembled as he lifted the cup. Tears welled in his eyes, mixing with the dirt on his wrinkled face. He sipped slowly, and every drop tasted like mercy. He whispered again, "You don't understand what you've done. They will not forgive you." His eyes darted around the room, seeing faces watching, some with hunger, some with envy, others with hatred. The guards leaned close, their shadows falling across the table. "You think you are noble, human? You think you are strong?" One hissed. His breath reeked of blood wine. "You will regret this. We will make sure the whole city knows you are a fool." The human lifted his gaze to meet theirs. His calm was unshaken. "If kindness is foolish," he said softly, "then I will be a fool." The words struck like a blade. Some in the crowd gasped, others laughed nervously. No one had ever spoken like that to the guards. The human's calm voice carried a weight that silence could not bury. For a moment, the guards hesitated. Violence was their answer to everything. Yet here was a human who did not fear it. From the back of the tavern, a shadowy figure watched with sharp eyes, the same one who had leaned forward earlier. His mouth curved into a small smile, as if he saw a fire beginning to spark where no one expected it. He whispered to himself, unheard by others, "Interesting." The old alien lowered his cup, his thin hands shaking. He tried to speak again, but his throat tightened with fear. His heart beat fast, not just from the kindness he had been shown, but from the danger now tied to this human. He knew that stepping between guards and their prey was never forgiven. The guards slammed their batons against the table, cracking the wood, their patience gone. "This is not finished, human," one spat. "You will regret your mouth, your money, and your mercy." They turned sharply, storming toward the door, but their eyes promised blood when the time was right. The tavern breathed again, but the air was heavy, charged with something unseen. Whispers spread like fire, rumors already forming, tales twisting in the mouths of drunks. The human bought trouble, someone muttered. He thinks he's a hero, another sneered. Yet others, quieter, spoke differently. No one ever stood for the old one, not even his own people. And now a human does? The human ignored the whispers. He tore a piece of bread and placed it before the old alien. He spoke gently, as if nothing around them mattered. Eat. No one will touch you tonight. The words carried comfort, but also danger. The promise of protection was itself a challenge in this place. The old alien lifted the bread with both hands, his eyes full of sorrow and gratitude. Why? He asked softly. His voice shook. Why help me when you gain nothing? The human's face softened just a little. Because no one else would, he said. The old alien stared at him, silent, his throat tight with unspoken words. Around them, the crowd's noise grew again, but eyes still turned toward their table. Some with hate, some with curiosity, and some with respect they could not admit aloud. In the corner, the shadowy figure rose quietly and slipped out of the tavern door, vanishing into the night. He had seen enough. He knew this human was not ordinary, and he would carry the news to ears that mattered. The guard's laughter still echoed outside, carrying a promise of revenge. The old alien looked at the door, then at the human, fear and hope mixing inside him. He whispered once more, almost like a warning, "You have stepped into a storm that will not end." The human sat calmly, eating his share of bread, his eyes thoughtful but firm. The storm was already here, and he had chosen to face it. The tavern became quieter after the guards left, but the silence was uneasy, like the calm before a storm. The old alien's hands shook as he held the bread the human had given him. His wrinkled eyes stared down at the table, then lifted slowly toward the human sitting beside him. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then his lips parted, his voice low, cracked, and heavy with hidden weight. "You have no idea what danger you called upon yourself tonight," he whispered. The human leaned back in his chair, calm, his gaze steady as if he had heard such warnings before. "Danger follows me wherever I go," he replied softly. "But hunger should never be a death sentence." He gestured toward the food. "Eat, old one. You need strength." The alien hesitated, but hunger gnawed deeper than fear. He chewed slowly as if each bite carried a memory. After a while, he spoke again, his words trembling. "I was not always this way. Once I had rank. Once, my name was respected across star systems. They came to me for answers. They trusted my mind." He lifted his thin hand and touched his temple. "I was a scientist. I built things, powerful things. But I saw what the Empire did with my work. They used it to destroy, to conquer. I refused to give them more. For that, they took everything from me, my status, my family, my name." His eyes filled with tears, not only of sadness but of shame. "Now I am nothing. Just an old fool, waiting to starve in a tavern corner." The human listened quietly, his face showing neither shock nor pity, only understanding. "They cast you aside because you would not serve," he said, "and now they punish you for surviving." The old alien nodded weakly. His voice dropped lower. "Helping me tonight was no small act. The guards you defied do not forget, and the Empire does not forgive. You bought me a meal, but you also bought yourself their hatred." His hand trembled as he reached into his robe and pulled out a small, strange object. It looked like a key, forged from metal, unlike anything the human had seen, glowing faintly with blue lines across its surface. He placed it carefully on the table between them. "This is all I have left," the old alien whispered. "It unlocks something hidden, something the Empire fears. They hunted me for it. That is why I am nothing now. I should destroy it, but I could not." His eyes searched the human's face. "And now fate has brought you to my side. Perhaps it is no accident." The human's eyes narrowed. He studied the key, then looked back at the alien. "What does it open?" he asked. The old alien's voice dropped so low it was almost a breath. "The truth, and the truth can break empires." Before the human could ask more, footsteps scraped against the floor. A group of younger aliens, strong and cocky, had been watching from the other side of the tavern. Their eyes burned with jealousy and cruelty. They stood up together, 5 of them, circling closer to the table like predators around prey. One of them, with sharp tusks jutting from his jaw, sneered and spat on the floor. "Look at this. A human sitting as if he belongs here, feeding the worthless one, paying his bills like some hero." He leaned over, his shadow falling across the table. "Maybe we should remind you where your place is, human." The old alien flinched, clutching the key against his chest, but the human only shifted slightly, his hand resting calmly on his knee where the hilt of a small concealed blade lay hidden. He raised his eyes and met the tusked alien's stare. "My place," he said slowly, "is where I choose to stand." The words made the group laugh loudly, but their laughter carried menace. One of them grabbed the human's shoulder to shove him, but the moment his hand touched, the human's arm twisted sharply. In one swift motion, he broke the alien's balance and sent him crashing into the table behind. Cups and plates flew into the air, spilling drinks and food across the floor. The crowd roared with excitement. The other four rushed forward, their fists and claws ready. The human rose, swift and precise, not large in size but fast, his movements sharp like blades. He dodged the first swing, drove his elbow into the attacker's ribs, and kicked the second one's knee sideways, making him howl in pain. A chair smashed as another tried to grab him, but the human spun, using the broken leg of the chair as a weapon, striking across a face and sending blood spraying. The tavern erupted into chaos. Cheers and shouts filled the air, tables overturned, and more aliens climbed onto benches to watch. The human moved like water, never still, never wasting energy. He ducked under a heavy swing, then slammed his palm into a jaw, breaking it with a crack. Another came from behind, but the human grabbed a jug from the table and smashed it over his head, dropping him instantly. The last of the group staggered back, his confidence broken. He glared at the human, spitting blood, but fear shone in his eyes. He backed away slowly, then turned and ran, disappearing into the crowd. The tavern roared with noise. Some shouted insults, others cheered, but none could deny what they had seen. A human, the weakest species in their eyes, had just defeated 5 armed aliens with nothing but speed, skill, and courage. The whispers grew louder, spreading across the room. The old alien sat frozen, clutching the glowing key against his chest, staring at the human in awe. His lips trembled as he whispered, "You are not like the others. You are different." The human sat back down slowly, breathing steady, not showing fear, not showing pride. He picked up a cup, poured himself water, and drank calmly as if nothing had happened. His eyes scanned the room, meeting every stare with quiet defiance. But he knew what the fight meant. The guards would hear of this. The Empire's eyes would turn toward him. He had stepped into a storm far greater than he first imagined when he paid a simple bill. And in the dark corner, the shadowy figure who had left earlier slipped back inside, a smile hidden beneath his hood. The game had begun, and the human had already made himself a target. The tavern was still buzzing with excitement after the fight. Broken chairs lay scattered, spilled drinks soaked the floor, and the smell of blood mixed with smoke in the air. Yet the human sat calmly, as if nothing had happened, sipping water from a cracked cup. The old alien, trembling, clutched the glowing key close to his chest. His eyes darted nervously around the room, aware that what had just happened would spread beyond these walls. The tavern owner, a heavy-set alien with 3 eyes and scarred arms, stepped closer. He leaned down, his voice low so only the human could hear. "You made enemies tonight, but you also made allies you don't know you have." He slid a small plate of food across the table, a silent gesture of thanks. Not everyone here loves the Empire. Some of us still remember what kindness looks like. The human gave a small nod and pushed the food toward the old alien. "Eat," he said softly, as if the danger outside did not matter yet. The old alien tried to lift the spoon, but his hands shook too much. The human took the spoon and helped him bring the food to his lips. Tears slid down the old alien's face as he whispered, "Why do you do this? You don't know me." "I don't need to," the human replied simply. But before the old alien could answer, the tavern doors slammed open with a heavy crash. Cold night air rushed inside, making the candles flicker. The noise of the room died instantly. A squad of armored city guards marched in, their boots striking in rhythm. Their helmets glowed faintly with red lights, and the symbol of the Empire gleamed on their armor. Everyone lowered their eyes, fearful of looking too long at them. The lead guard stepped forward, his voice booming. "By order of the city command, the old exile and the human are to be taken into custody. They are guilty of disturbing the peace and insulting the authority of the Empire." The old alien froze, his breath catching. He knew this moment would come. His fingers gripped the key so tightly it left marks on his skin. The human stood up slowly, placing himself between the guards and the old alien. His eyes narrowed, but he spoke calmly. He is guilty of nothing but hunger, and I of nothing but paying his debt. The guard's visor gleamed as he laughed. You dare argue with law? Your words are already another crime. Step forward now, or we will break you. The crowd stayed silent, no one daring to defend them. Fear ruled the room. The tavern owner's jaw tightened, but even he stepped back into the shadows. No one wanted to fight the Empire. The old alien tried to rise, whispering to the human, "Don't resist. Please, don't make this worse." His legs shook as he stood, but his dignity kept him upright. The human placed a steadying hand on his arm. "If they want you, they'll take us both," he said. The guards moved in quickly, grabbing them by the arms and locking heavy cuffs around their wrists. The cold metal bit into their skin. The old alien gasped, his weak body nearly collapsing, but the human steadied him. The guards dragged them forward, their boots scraping across the floor. The tavern crowd parted like water, eyes wide, whispers spreading like smoke. Some looked away in shame, others in fear, but none dared to step forward. Only the shadowy figure in the corner, unseen by most, watched with interest, his smile hidden beneath his hood. As they were dragged toward the door, the old alien whispered shakily, "I warned you. Helping me would bring this. Now you carry my curse too." The human leaned closer so only he could hear. "Then we carry it together." The guards pushed them out into the cold night. The streets were empty, lit only by pale lamps that cast long shadows. The sound of chains rattled with each step as they were pulled toward a large armored transport waiting at the end of the street. Its engines hummed, glowing faintly in the dark. The old alien stumbled, nearly falling, but the human caught him before he hit the ground. The guards mocked them as they shoved them inside the transport. "Look at the human protecting garbage. What a sight!" Another guard laughed. "Maybe we should make him watch the old one die tomorrow. That would be a fitting lesson." The old alien's face went pale, his eyes closing as fear gripped him. He whispered again, barely audible, "They will kill me this time. They always promised they would if they found me again. I will not leave this prison alive." The human sat close, his cuffs rattling as he leaned in. His voice was low, steady, like iron. "Then I will not let them keep you." The old alien looked at him, half shocked, but the human's face was firm, his eyes sharp with quiet determination. It was not a boast, it was a promise. The transport rumbled forward through the streets, carrying them toward the city prison. The human's mind stayed calm, though his body tensed with readiness. He watched every detail, the guards' weapons, their armor, the layout of the transport, the locked door. He measured every weakness with the patience of a hunter. The old alien held the glowing key tightly against his chest, hiding it in the folds of his robe. He whispered, "This will be the end for me if they find it. I should have destroyed it long ago." The human turned his head slightly and said, "Then keep it hidden. Its end is not today." Outside, the city's towers loomed in the distance, sharp against the dark sky. The prison waited ahead, cold and merciless. Inside the transport, the chains rattled with each bump, but the human's gaze stayed steady. What began as a simple act of paying a meal had now pulled him into the jaws of the Empire. And though the night was cold, the fire inside him burned brighter with every passing moment. The cell was dark, damp, and smelled of rust. Water dripped from the ceiling in slow drops, echoing across the stone floor. The human sat against the wall, his hands chained in front of him, his back straight and calm, despite the cold biting at his skin. Beside him, the old alien lay on the ground, his breathing shallow, his body trembling with weakness. The chains around his wrists were too heavy for him, cutting into his thin skin, leaving red marks. The silence was broken only by the sound of distant footsteps and the clanging of doors. The old alien coughed, his voice thin and full of despair. "This is where it ends for me. They will not let me live this time. I have escaped their grasp too many times already." His eyes turned toward the human, watery and filled with regret. "You should not have involved yourself. They will kill you too." The human shifted closer, his voice calm, steady, and low. "I involved myself the moment I saw you fall. I will not regret that." His eyes flicked toward the barred door, watching carefully. "Besides, we are not dead yet." The old alien gave a weak laugh, bitter and broken. Hope is a fire that burns out fast in these walls. I know this prison. I was here before. Once, they kept me alive to question me, to force knowledge from me. Now, they need nothing but my death. He reached into his robe, pulling the glowing key from its hiding place. He stared at it for a long moment, then held it out with shaking hands. Take it. If they kill me, do not let it fall into their hands. Promise me. The human looked at the key, but did not reach for it. Why give it to me? He asked. Because you are the only one who stood for me, the alien whispered. The only one who did not turn away when I was cast aside. That means more than you know. His hand pressed the key into the human's chains until the glow touched his skin. This unlocks something powerful, something dangerous. It is why they fear me, and why they will never forgive me. Guard it, even if I am gone. Before the human could answer, the cell door screeched open. 2 guards stepped inside, their armor gleaming faintly in the torchlight. One of them pointed at the old alien. Time for the exile to meet his end. The alien's eyes closed in defeat, but the human's muscles tightened. He stood slowly, the chains clinking, and placed himself between the guards and the old alien. You will not take him, he said, his voice steady as steel. The guards laughed, one of them slamming a baton against the bars. Look at this. The human thinks he is a warrior. You are chained like a beast, and still, you make threats? But the human did not move aside. His gaze stayed fixed, his stance firm. The guards grew irritated, stepping closer. One raised his baton, swinging it toward him. But in a flash, the human twisted his body. The chain around his wrists swung with him, wrapping around the guard's arm. With a sharp pull, he yanked the guard forward and drove his knee into the man's chest. The guard fell back, gasping for air. The second guard rushed at him, but the human swung the heavy chain like a whip. It struck across the guard's helmet with a metallic crack, sending him stumbling. With speed and precision, the human looped the chain around the man's throat, pulling tight until he collapsed unconscious. The first guard tried to recover, but the human kicked him in the head, knocking him out cold. Breathing hard but focused, he bent down and stripped the keys from one of their belts. His hands moved quickly, unlocking his own cuffs with a sharp click. The weight of the chains fell to the ground. He rubbed his wrists, then unlocked the old alien's chains as gently as he could. The old alien gasped, staring in shock. How did you? The human only gave a faint smile. I've broken out of worse. He helped the old alien to his feet, supporting his frail body. We don't have much time. They will notice soon. They slipped out of the cell, dragging the unconscious guards inside and locking the door behind them. The hallway was dim, lit by flickering torches, shadows stretching across the stone walls. The human moved carefully, guiding the old alien, his ears sharp for every sound. They passed other cells, where broken voices whispered from the darkness. Prisoners called out, begging for freedom, offering secrets, promising loyalty. But the human did not stop. He could not risk the delay. The old alien leaned heavily against him, whispering, There is a way out through the Eastern Passage. Few know it. I escaped once long ago, but it is dangerous. The human nodded, determination in his eyes. Then that is the way we will take. As they moved down the corridor, shouts suddenly rang out from behind. The bodies of the guards had been found. Alarms blared, a shrill metallic sound that echoed through every hall. The human tightened his grip on the old alien. We run, he said firmly. They hurried forward, their footsteps echoing. Guards poured into the corridors behind them, shouting orders, weapons clanging. The human dragged the old alien around corners, ducking into shadows, striking quickly when they had no choice. He disarmed one guard, using his stolen baton to knock another to the ground. Blood stained the floor as they fought their way through. Finally, they reached a large iron gate at the end of the hall. The old alien pointed weakly. Beyond that door, the passage, freedom. The human jammed the stolen keys into the lock, his hands steady even as voices shouted closer. The lock clicked, the gate creaked, and the door swung open to reveal a dark stairway leading down. He pulled the old alien through, slamming the gate shut behind them just as guards rounded the corner. Torches lit the hidden passage, old and crumbling, long forgotten by most. The air smelled of dust and stone, but it carried the promise of escape. The old alien leaned against the wall, his chest heaving. You saved me, he whispered in disbelief. No one has ever saved me. The human looked at him, his eyes calm, his voice firm. "We are not safe yet, but I gave you my word. I would not let them take you." Far above, the shouts of guards still echoed, growing fainter with each step down the hidden stair. For the first time in years, the old alien felt something more than fear. He felt hope, carried not by himself, but by the human who refused to leave him behind. The passage twisted like a snake beneath the city, its walls rough and wet with dripping water. The air was heavy, filled with the smell of mold and dust. The human guided the old alien carefully, one arm around his frail shoulders, while the other hand gripped the stolen baton. Their footsteps echoed faintly, mixing with the distant shouts of guards who were searching above. The alarm bells still rang, their metallic cry reaching even into the underground, but it was weaker here. The old alien coughed as they moved, his breath shallow. "These tunnels, they are old. They were used long ago, before the Empire sealed them. I found them once when I escaped. Few alive even know they exist." His voice trembled as he spoke, every word costing him strength. The human kept him steady, his eyes scanning every shadow. "If they don't know of it, then it is our chance." As they pressed forward, the tunnel widened, opening into a chamber where broken stone statues lined the walls. Strange symbols glowed faintly, carved deep into the rock. The old alien's eyes widened, almost in reverence. "This place, it was built before the Empire, by those who came before us. I thought it had been lost." The human studied the carvings briefly, but his focus was on the sound of approaching footsteps echoing from behind. Guards had found another entrance. He clenched his jaw, pulling the old alien onward. "We don't have time for history. Keep moving." The tunnel sloped downward until they reached an underground stream, rushing fast through a narrow trench. A rotting wooden bridge stretched across it, swaying slightly with the movement of air. The old alien froze at the sight, fear in his eyes. "This bridge, it may not hold us." The human tested it with his foot. The wood creaked dangerously, but he stepped forward without hesitation. "It will hold as long as it needs to." Slowly, he guided the old alien across. The boards groaned under their weight, but step by step they made it. Halfway across, shouts rang out behind them. Guards spilled into the chamber, their boots pounding the floor, weapons raised. The old alien panicked, his legs nearly giving way. "They will kill us here!" The human tightened his grip. "Look at me. Don't stop. Walk." His voice carried strength like iron, pulling the old alien's mind back from despair. They crossed just as the first shots fired, bolts of energy slamming into the stone around them. The bridge cracked, pieces falling into the water below, but the human shoved the old alien forward onto solid ground. He turned quickly, slicing the ropes with his baton, and the bridge collapsed into the rushing stream. The guards cursed on the other side, unable to follow. For the moment, they were safe. The old alien collapsed against the wall, gasping for air, clutching the glowing key close to his chest. The human crouched beside him, steadying his breathing, his sharp eyes watching the dark tunnel ahead. "We can't stop. They'll find another way around." Together, they moved deeper into the tunnels until they reached a hidden door carved into stone. The old alien pressed his trembling hand against it. Symbols lit up, reacting to his touch. The stone shifted with a deep grinding sound, and the doorway opened. Beyond it lay a secret chamber filled with strange machines, half broken, covered in dust, yet still humming faintly with forgotten power. The human stepped inside cautiously, scanning the room. The old alien followed, his eyes wide with awe. This is what I was protecting." He pointed to the machines. "My work began here. Long ago, I built something that could free entire worlds from the Empire's chains. They called it dangerous, but I called it hope." His voice shook with emotion. The human frowned. "And the key?" The alien held it up. "It activates what they fear most." Before the human could ask more, the chamber shook violently. Explosions echoed from the tunnels outside. Dust fell from the ceiling as the guards began blasting their way in. The old alien's face twisted with terror. "They found us already. We cannot escape them now." The human grabbed his shoulders firmly. "Listen to me. You survived because you were meant to. If what you built can help free others, then it cannot end here." The old alien's eyes filled with tears. "Why do you care? You are not even of my kind. You gain nothing by saving me." The human's jaw tightened. "Because no one deserves chains. And because if I walk away now, then I am no better than those who laughed at you in that tavern." The walls shook again as the guards breached the outer chamber. The human moved quickly, pulling the old alien behind a large console. He grabbed a heavy piece of broken machinery, wielding it like a weapon. The old alien trembled, clutching the key in both hands, torn between fear and duty. The doors burst open, and armored guards stormed in, weapons blazing. The human leapt forward, striking hard. He ducked under blasts, smashing his improvised weapon into helmets and armor. The sound of steel against steel filled the air. He moved with speed and precision, using the shadows of the machines as cover. One by one, guards fell, either unconscious or broken, but more poured in. The old alien screamed, holding the key high. Energy rippled from it, a surge of light that spread through the room. The machines hummed to life, glowing with power long dormant. The guards froze for a moment, staring in fear at the sudden awakening of forbidden technology. The old alien's face was lit by the glow, his eyes burning with defiance. He thought he had lost forever. The human fought like a storm, slamming one guard into a console, twisting another's arm until his weapon dropped, kicking him hard to the ground. Sweat dripped down his face, but his resolve never wavered. He knew he was outnumbered, but he also knew retreat was not an option. The old alien cried out, "I can activate it, but I need more time." The human blocked another strike, his voice sharp as steel. "Then I'll give you time." The battle raged in the chamber, each moment pushing them closer to either freedom or death. The machines roared louder, energy filling the air with a vibrating hum. The human stood his ground, unyielding, every strike fueled not by pride, but by the promise he had made. The old alien's trembling hands pressed the key into the heart of the machine, and light erupted, flooding the chamber with blinding brilliance. The guards faltered, their courage broken as the power awakened. And through the chaos, one truth became clear. What began with a simple act of kindness had now ignited the spark of something far greater, something the Empire could not control. The chamber shook as the machine roared to life. Light spilled from its core, painting the walls with blue and gold streaks. The guards who had stormed inside froze, their weapons trembling in their hands. Some stepped back in fear, others shouted orders to keep fighting, but none could hide the unease spreading across their faces. The old alien stood with the glowing key pressed into the console, his frail body trembling, but his eyes alive with fire. For the first time in years, he felt strength returning to him, not in his limbs, but in his spirit. The human stood in front of him, blood on his lip, sweat dripping down his brow, the stolen baton in one hand and a broken piece of metal in the other. His chest rose and fell quickly, but his stance remained unshaken. He was outnumbered, surrounded by soldiers with better weapons, yet not one of them had managed to get past him. Each step they took forward, he pushed them back, with speed, precision, and a resolve that refused to break. The leader of the guards pointed his weapon, shouting over the hum of the machine, "Shut it down! Kill the exile and his human pet!" The command filled the room, but none of the guards moved at once. The power pulsing from the machine filled them with dread. The human used that hesitation. He lunged forward, knocking a weapon aside, slamming his elbow into one guard's throat, then twisting to throw another across the floor. Every movement was fast, brutal, but exact, as though he had practiced it 1,000 times. The old alien cried out, "It's almost ready. Just a little longer." His voice was hoarse but steady. His hands shook over the glowing panel as streams of energy poured into the chamber. The guards snapped from their fear and rushed again. Blasts of energy bolts cut through the air, scorching metal. The human ducked, rolled, and used fallen enemies as shields. He pressed forward, forcing the fight into close quarters where their numbers meant less. His baton cracked against helmets, his fists struck jaws, and his legs kicked with precision, dropping soldiers one after another. Still, more kept coming. The old alien's voice trembled as he shouted, "Leave me! Take the key and run! They want me, not you!" The human struck another guard down and turned his head sharply. His voice cut like steel. "No, I said I wouldn't leave you." The old alien's throat tightened, his eyes burning with emotion. No one had ever spoken those words for him before. He clenched his teeth, pouring every ounce of focus into the console. The machine pulsed brighter, a low hum growing into a roar that shook the ground beneath their feet. A guard broke through the chaos, raising his blade to strike the old alien, but the human was faster. He leapt across the room, blocking the strike with his baton. Sparks flew as the blade carved into the metal. The human twisted hard, wrenching the weapon free, then slammed the guard to the floor. He stood panting, the blade now in his own hand, his eyes blazing with fury. The leader roared, charging forward, but the human met him head-on. Their weapons clashed with violent force, the sound echoing through the chamber. The leader was larger, stronger, his armor thick, but the human was faster. He ducked low, slashed upward, and drove his shoulder into the leader's chest. The impact knocked the armored giant backward, stumbling into a console. At that moment, the old alien cried out, "It's done!" The machine exploded with light brighter than 100 suns. The walls shook, dust and stone raining down. A shockwave burst outward, sending guards flying across the chamber. Their weapons short-circuited, sparks bursting from their hands as they fell stunned to the ground. The leader tried to rise, but the power wave knocked him flat, his weapon shattering into pieces. Silence followed, broken only by the crackling of energy fading into the machines. The room glowed softly, the air vibrating with a strange calm. The guards lay scattered, groaning in pain, defeated not only by the human strength, but by the power the old alien had awakened. The old alien slumped to the floor, exhausted, the key still glowing faintly in his hand. He looked up at the human, tears in his eyes. "You saved me, but more than that, you saved hope." The human walked to him, breathing heavily, and knelt beside him. He placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "No, you saved it. I only gave you time." The old alien clutched the key to his chest, his voice trembling. "You don't understand. What we did here tonight will spread. They will tell the story. The Empire will fear it, and others will rise." The human's eyes softened, though his voice stayed firm. "Then let them fear it. Let them know one truth. No one is too small to stand, and no act of kindness is wasted." Outside the chamber, sounds began to rise again. Distant shouts. More guards would come, and soon. But something had already changed. The old alien, once seen as broken and useless, was alive, his spirit burning again. And the human, once dismissed as weak and unworthy, had stood against an empire's might and did not fall. The old alien struggled to his feet with the human's help. Together, they stepped through the hidden passage at the far side of the chamber. The air outside was cold, the night sky full of stars. Behind them, the machine's glow still shone faintly, a beacon of defiance against the Empire's chains. In the city streets, whispers were already spreading. The human who had paid a bill in a tavern, who had lifted an old exile from the dirt, who had fought against impossible odds. He was no longer just a traveler. He was a spark. The old alien looked at him with a mix of gratitude and wonder. "They will tell your story, you know. They will whisper it in dark corners and shout it in hidden markets. They will remember the night the human stood." The human only gave a small, quiet smile. "Stories don't matter. What matters is what comes next." Together, they walked into the shadows, hunted but unbroken, carrying with them the key to something far greater than themselves. And though the Empire would chase them, though danger would follow at every step, hope had already been reborn. The storm had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.